Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star sports podcast. We're here today with star columnists Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian, and we're going to talk some college basketball. March Madness is upon us. I don't know if the madness technically starts with conference tournaments or you got to wait for the NCAA. I don't know how it's trademarked or who owns what. Is there a different kind of description for conference anyway? Postseason college basketball.
I think the conference tournaments are part of it, right?
I think certainly it's marketed as such on E-SPAN and other things, and I agree with that. And I think also part of the reason we say that is that the true thrill of somebody coming through in a conference tournament is very much what informs how we start feeling about the NCAA.
Especially the mid-majors. For the Big 12 is this week, right down the street here. At T-Mobile Center. The SEC is in Nashville, and ACC, Big East, Big Ten. They have their conference tournaments, and it's great high-level college basketball. But the drama really is in the mid-majors, the smaller conferences, and the conferences that only get one bid to the NCAA tournament.
For sure, and this resonated with me the other day because when I worked in St. Louis for all those years, one of the stories I covered was the transition of Southern Illinois, Edwardsville, from D2 to D1. I think it was 2007 or 2008, and they finally had
won the
Panthers, the Cougars.
Yes,
Cougars.
One of them.
My wife's alma mater has secured a NCAA tournament bid for the first time. 18 years in the making, and that's the essence of what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, not to belabor the point, but on that same day, two other first-time NCAA tournament teams won their conference tournament. One of them being Omaha in the Summit, which is UMKC's conference. And I wonder how Omaha celebrated because technically they qualified for the NCAA by winning their semifinal game because the team they played in the championship, St. Thomas of Minnesota, was not eligible for the NCAA tournament, transitioning into Division I. So anyway, good vibes for Omaha.
Yeah.
Congratulations to them. I mentioned that the Big 12 is the women's tournament just finished up on Sunday. TCU, an incredible story. They were 1-17 in the league 2 years ago, won the regular season in the conference tournament, and now the men are taking center stage at T-Mobile. It's the however many 50th, 60th year of pretty much every year in Kansas City since World War II. We've had some kind of tournament basketball here, and I've made the case over the years that Kansas City's a good college basketball town, and I wonder. There's been some pushback a little bit. Is it just because the closest Division I school outside of UMKC to Kansas City is Kansas, and they're historically good. And so when Kansas plays over here, there's always big crowds. You've heard it said that KU is our NBA team. But is Kansas City a college basketball mecca type of place?
I think no one is more equipped to speak to this than you in a lot of ways. But one of the things
that's why I was trying to get you to ask me the question.
Let's flip it on you. No, but I think
slide the paper across the Vahe. Ask me this.
I mean, I do think the KU thing is part of the kind of foundational thing, but I think nothing is more foundational than the depth of the history, right? Going back to NCAA.
Yeah, being here.
I think still, is it 10, Blair? 10 Final Fours?
10 Final Fours, most of any.
Still the most.
Still the most.
And after all these years, and only one in the last, 60 years, only 1988 since the mid-60s.
Yeah. 64 was the last one at Municipal.
Yeah. So I think it's an interesting thing to ponder how that regenerates itself or might feed off itself over the years, right? I mean, it's sort of in the land, Final Four mecca of yesteryear. How much that really gets passed down through the generations, I don't know.
I don't think Kansas City does a great job promoting that idea.
Yeah.
I say that because I also, in addition to going to the Big 12 women's tournament, the Division II MIAA tournament was at Municipal Auditorium, and I went to the championship games on Sunday, and there is no identification of 9 Final Fours having been played in that building.
Yeah.
In the building.
In the building itself,
there's no photo gallery or, list of champions, and I think that's a missed promotional opportunity.
I think you're right, and whether within there or even some other place, I mean, The other thing too, I mean, just the sheer energy and mayhem of the NAIA tournament. I believe the format's changed where there's on campus before they all come here.
I think it's 16 teams come here.
Yeah, which is different than the days. I'm sure you covered it a time or two, just going in there. And
when 1,382 teams actually came to Kansas City and played 20 nonstop for 3 weeks.
I can't remember what year it was, but I think it was either the first or second time I ever came to Kansas City. I had an opportunity to spend a day following Dick Vitale doing the NAIA tournament. And it, in the truck and all this stuff, it was just really cool. And it all that stuff is part of this, right? There is a centralized energy here for it. I do agree with you for sure that I wish it were celebrated a little better. One of the reasons I brought up the Final Fours is I'm not sure how much of our audience is even cognizant of that.
Well, and there won't be another one here, right? Unless there's a new football stadium with a roof, and I do think Kansas City would be up for a Final Four, men's or women's, but men's especially, because that's what it takes to hold a men's Final Four. Yeah, I think the Final Four would come back to Kansas City with a 70,000 seat football stadium.
I sure would think so, and it's very hard for us to know how much that's realistic in the thinking of the potential scene scenarios. I think not as likely as maybe we would like it to be for a whole galaxy of reasons we probably won't get into today. But I think to your broader point, the image and accumulated reputation of Kansas City for being able to host major events over the years is self-evident, especially with World Cup coming next year, biggest statement of all. So,
firmly established that Kansas City's a college basketball center of gravity sort of place with all the tournaments. But I also think contributing to that is we often have a couple of teams that we cover in our sphere that are good and can win games in March. Let's start with we have 2 this year. Not eliminating the third, Kansas State, but Kansas and Missouri are definitely going to go to the NCAA tournament. Kansas is not going to be a top 4 seed, which will be the first time in the Bill Self era, 22 years at Kansas, and they are not going to be a top 4 seed. I don't even think if they win the Big 12 tournament they could get to a top 4. I could be wrong about that, but I think they're a 7 or an 8 seed right now. But it's been such a different year for Kansas, coming off a victory in their regular season finale against Arizona, which I thought they looked good, one of their better games of the season. I know none of us were at the game. We were in different places, but should Kansas be buoyed by the way it played Saturday? Is it enough to forget about the issues that they've had? Have they righted the ship? Are they ready to take? Can one game give them momentum to go into the postseason? And what do we make of Kansas right now?
Well, I think it can, and I'm going to take this opportunity to dish it over to Sam on a point that he made in his recent column, which is, Sam, you should tell the story, I guess, but about the 17-second drill that Bill Self was talking about. Once the team has demonstrated it can run whatever that distance is in 17 seconds, and they make the mistake of letting the coach realize they can do it, and so they always should. And I guess the point is really the threshold of what they can be at their best. The thing, one last quick aside, and we can use this when we talk about Missouri too, I think the complicated thing for Kansas is how the parts go together, and that's been kind of the key for Missouri is how the parts go together with Missouri's surge. But Sam, you've been in Bill Self's office recently and had a chance to really roll up the sleeves and talk to him about some of these things.
Yeah, I mean, what really stands out to me about KU this year is the final 2 minutes, the way they play is just drastically different. I mean, they used to be a team that if you were even with them in the final 2 or 3 minutes, it was over. Like, they were going to execute every play down the stretch, and a lot of that was Bill Self. I mean, a lot of this is there's a lot of luck that goes into those final 2 or 3 minutes and just how that's going to play out. A lot of the best coaches in NCAA history don't have, like, that much better than a 500 win percentage in those spots, and Bill Self is just terrific. I mean, he's head and shoulders above everyone else, and that's what they did against Arizona, that they were unable to do against Houston, they were unable to do against Texas Tech, that they were unable to do against a lot of teams this year. Is like you could just take the last 2 or 3 minutes of a game and point out 5 or 6 ways that they had screwed it up. And for the most experienced team in the country, that's a really disappointing feature that they've had this year.
No doubt. I going back to the ends of the game at Houston, the game at home against Texas Tech, and other games, they've either missed free throws. The Houston game at Allen Fieldhouse to lose the 6-point lead in the last however many seconds it was.
And that wasn't a bug. That's a feature of the team. I mean, it wasn't just a one-time deal that happened to them.
Even more recently, even just the more recent Houston game, just the dead giveaway by Dickinson when they were in position to tie it. And the reason I bring that up is I don't think I'll ever forget how long Bill Self put his hands up to his head and held him there in distress after that play. And it did illustrate some of their liabilities in a pretty strong fashion. Well,
you guys have touched on it. There seems to be a team that has the record that Kansas has, which is 20. I think they're 20-11 right now overall. They're 11-9 in the conference. The most conference losses for Kansas since, I don't know, got to be the Ted Owens era, right? First of all, it's a 20-game schedule, which is lengthy. But I remember the one time they finished under 500 in the Larry Brown, Roy Williams, Bill Self era. They were 6-8 under Roy Williams in his first year. So it's been a long time since they've lost this many conference games and are not in the top 4 in the league. Was that Blair also the last time they had a losing conference record? I'm sorry. It was definitely the last time they lose a conference. Didn't have one this year, but I mean that. Yeah. Yep. That's So it leads me to wonder. As Bill Self was putting this team together this year, he had to build around Hunter Dickinson and KJ Adams and DeJuan Harris. Yeah. So he picks up AJ Storr, Ryland Griffin, Shaquille Moore, Coit, and Mayo, and it seemed like he addressed the biggest needs. They were not a good shooting team a year ago, and he got some shooters and some wing type guys, some scorers. But it just hasn't worked out that way for him this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is you need more than 2 shooters on the floor. And when you started with those 3 guys that you mentioned, you decide that you're going to keep the core in place and you're going to play Juan Harris and KJ Adams and Hunter Dickinson 30-plus minutes a game. Most of the time on the court, you have 3 guys who can't shoot that the defense can sag off of, and that's changed the way Hunter Dickinson's been effective down low because KJ Adams' guy can double off of him, because the point guard sags off of Juan Harris. So I actually think there's been so much focus on the guys he brought in and not enough focus on the guys he kept, because that forced you, once you played KJ Adams and Hunter Dickinson together, your style of play is sealed. You are going to have to play in a way to where you can't play, let's say, how they won their last national championship, where Jalen Wilson was your 4 and he could shoot. I mean, guys had to come out to respect him shooting from 3 that year. And you also had 4 guys who could get the ball and run. If they were the rebounder, they were also bringing the ball up the floor. KJ Adams has done a little bit of that this year. There's a major difference between KJ Adams at the 4 and Jalen Wilson at the 4 that's not just their shooting, which is Jalen Wilson rebounded the hell out of the ball. So that was an advantage. KJ Adams doesn't really rebound the ball that well either. So I think when I look at the pieces of how this fit, or in this case doesn't fit, I think more than anything it's about the core that they kept in place. I don't know what players you were going to get if you were Bill Self that made it look like all 5 pieces. If those were 3 of your starters, that all 5 pieces were going to fit really well together.
Well, I think if Zeke Mayo had been more of a consistent scorer, maybe he ended up being their leading scorer this year, maybe a 16 to 18 point a game guy, then he averages 14. But if he'd been a little bit more of maybe an all-conference caliber guy, and then found another scorer for the 5th starter, then you'd have Dickinson, who Bill Self loves and wants to play through, but not dependent on for 33 points, which is what it took to beat Arizona in the regular season finale. But he just doesn't have the consistent score, and it did not come from the newcomer class. There have been games in which Griffin or Coit against Houston, have stepped up and given him something, but it just hasn't been consistent. And And I think that's maybe explains why Kansas is in the situation it's in. So
I think when you look at their team, and this happens way more during conference season, is you start to learn what they can't do well, because you're playing so many similar teams, and the conference teams they scout you better. You have more games on tape, and KJ Adams can't shoot. Hunter Dickinson can't really shoot. He's also very slow-footed on defense. Juan Harris can't really shoot. He hasn't been the head of the defense the way I think he's been the past couple of years. And you look at Zeke Mayo, and I was looking this up the other day. So he made 5 shots against Arizona, all of them threes. You look at his last his last 6 games. You know how many 2-pointers he's made in the last 6 games?
I can't think of one.
4 in 6 games has he made inside the arc. So that's why the 3-point shots become more difficult for him, because while you sag off everyone else, you don't feel like he can race by you on a drive. And that's also why maybe KU didn't recruit him initially, is he's not the fastest of foot on the court, even though he can score.
I wonder if we can go back to Blair's original question about this. So, I mean, pretty good energy, pretty good response in the senior day, and we know that's a special event there. They never lose on that day. Can we take something from that? I suppose there's a germ of a possibility that it resets them a little bit, but I also think it's hard to picture them coming out of the first weekend,
which they haven't done since the championship year, right?
Yeah.
They were they're 1-1 in each of their last 2 NCAA tournaments. I don't know. They were the preseason top-ranked team in the country, and everybody who was with them then is with them now. They don't have last year they had the injury issues, right?
Yeah.
Kevin McCullers. They don't have that this year.
Yeah.
So this is, their team is on the floor.
Yeah. And look, I mean, they've had some dud moments in the NCAA, no doubt. But Bill is also a pretty resourceful coach, and I don't put past him the ability to reach them in a way that unlocks something.
They've had some clunker games this year, total clunkers. The loss at BYU by 34, the loss to Utah, the program that fired their coach, before the end of the season. Just some head-scratching losses. But they have played, in addition to the Arizona game, they did play, Texas Tech, a top 10 team, to the last possession. And they did go down to Houston and look, not terrible, and kept that game close. So maybe they found a little something, and I would like to see them win a couple of games in Kansas City to feel better about where they are. Should win the first one. They're the 6th seed, so they play the winner of the 11-14 game, and I can't even tell you. Utah is one of those teams. Maybe Central Florida, Utah.
Yeah, it's 11-14,
yeah. Yeah. So, and then, take your chances and see what you can do against Arizona's the 3 seed, so they might get to play them again pretty quickly in the tournament. So maybe I think if you're an opponent in the NCAA, you don't want to face Kansas, knowing that they might be a motivated team with a lot of talent. But I'm not good at bracketing, so I'm not going to.
And look, it's cliche, but it still will one way or another be about the matchups a little bit too. I mean, it's
Yeah.
I think they'd like to play a kind of a Houston type opponent, a down and dirty. They're not going to matched up against an Alabama type team. I don't like them at all.
Yeah, I mean they don't guard the 3 well, but also we've seen this team in important games give up a lot of offensive rebounds. I mean, Houston got a ton. 26 more shots in that game against KU.
Yes.
That's unheard of in a 3-point game.
It was amazing. The game was as close as it was, given that.
I mean, that's how Utah beat them at Utah too. Is they just beat the crap out of them on the offensive glass. So Vahe is right. I mean, it's tough to depend today or to predict today where KU is going to end up, because there are some teams that I think are really tough matchups for them. But it's getting harder and harder to envision KU having the makeup of a team that gets, to be honest, even to the second weekend, absent maybe an upset going in their favor in a neighboring game.
Right. So we're all down on Kansas.
But less down than I think most people in Lawrence are.
Yeah. And for, I don't know, every week except the last 2 or 1.5, we were all high on Missouri, but they have found the wrong time to skid a little bit. They've lost 3 straight to end the regular season. I think 4 or 5.
4 or 5, I think, is right, or 4 or 6, maybe.
It's 4 out of 5.
4 out
Yeah,
of 5. Kind of little bit distressing to see a team that was so good for a long stretch, with wins over Alabama and at Florida. That may be one of the most impressive wins of the season, the regular season.
For anybody, yeah.
Yeah.
Until Alabama won
Yep.
at Auburn over the weekend, it might have been the best win in college basketball.
And to see them struggle like they've been struggling here recently. These last 2 games, the Kentucky game, of course, the regular season finale, they fall behind by 8 to 10 early, and then they play the rest of the game in a catch-up mode. So, Vahe, I know you spent some time in Columbia recently. Before we get to what's wrong with Missouri, a lot went right for the Tigers this year, and we really need to appreciate that.
So much so that it's kind of easy to forget. I mean, we're now thinking in terms of, can they get to the second weekend and maybe have an outside shot of going deeper for a team that was winless in the SEC last year. Winless. I mean, that was humiliating in a lot of ways.
0-18.
I mean,
and the streak was 19 because you count the SEC tournament, right?
Hadn't won a game in the SEC like this, well, more than this calendar year, but it's what's kind of interesting is that we were talking about pieces before. Most of the pieces, 2/3 anyway, maybe 3/4 of the pieces that are in place for how this has worked out this season for Missouri were already there. I mean, there's some supplemental things. Obviously, Mark Mitchell's a huge addition coming in from Duke, but I think it's 4 of their 5 leading scorers were on the team last year. And, all the people I've spoken to about it, kind of make a point about how Dennis Gates, sort of being unwavering and, staying consistent with this, stabilize things. A sort of useful exercise was to picture Norm Stewart after an 0-18 or during an 0-18 conference season, how that may have gone. I don't think it would have been. You've been talking about somebody's equilibrium. So just think about what that took to reset. Reboot is probably a better term. And there's been so much to like about what they've done. You do wonder if, in some ways, either they've peaked, or if what we've seen these last 3 games, I guess, is just indicative that they're more vulnerable than we realize. I think the turnovers were actually not that uneven against Kentucky. I think it was like 20-19, but Kentucky scored off of all of them. And it was fewer than that, I think, but those were the points. So I think there's certain ways they get exposed, but I also think they for some reason, I like the sort of wild card component to what I think they could do versus wondering if Kansas really has it to get to the second weekend.
Maybe this is an example of a team just needing to get out of the conference and see somebody else, right? That's
pretty tough conference.
Maybe the toughest of all time.
Yeah.
It's incredible, the SEC this year. And Caleb Grill, Tamar Bates, Ant Robinson, all these guys were in the program a year ago. Grill, of course, didn't play, but Mark Mitchell's he's a change agent for this team this year. He's just been wonderful. When he backs down a defender, I just think they're scoring.
Yeah,
we're going to get a foul or they're going to score. And I know he does like the 3-point line a lot, and I would encourage him to like it a little less. But Mark Mitchell has been almost all conference worthy.
Yeah, I mean, he was the only guy that felt like he was contributing for him on Saturday. I think when you look at Mizzou, Dennis Gates was asked, and I saw our friend Gabe DeArmond for Power Mizzou tweet out the exchange about what's the difference in these last 4 games, and he said fouls. And I don't take that to mean that they're not getting calls, but Missouri's fouling a lot recently. But when you watch them play, I think the main reason for that is they allow guys to get in the lane way too easily from their guard positions. Their guards are allowing other teams' guards to drive right by them. And you look at the points they've given up in their last 6 games. They allowed 91 to Kentucky. They allowed 96 to Oklahoma, 7 to Vandy that did go into overtime, 71 to South Carolina. They did win that game by 30. 92 to Arkansas and 98 to Alabama. They've allowed 91 plus in 6 straight games. Like, that's not a winning formula in the NCAA tournament. You cannot play that way defensively and expect to. In fact, I don't think, and this isn't a Bill Self, correct me if I'm wrong, because you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think a team has ever had a Ken Palm defensive rating as poorly as theirs and won the NCAA tournament. And there was a while that Mizzou, and this is to Vahe and your point earlier, like, it's a credit to them that we even thought for a moment, can this team get to a Final Four for the first time in their program history? Because that was on none of our radars when this season began.
No, not at all. Well, I was going to say, and then Dennis Gates sets up a schedule in which they play a lot of mid majors to low majors, but they did beat Kansas, and that was an eye-opening. And the other big eye-opening game for me for Missouri earlier in the year was they played California in the SEC ACC Challenge, and they were down like 17 at halftime and came back and won that game. But lost to Memphis and lost to Illinois, so conference play begins, and you still kind of don't know. The great win right over KU, but then they take off, and these guys are really good, and they play downhill, they attack. I just love what they were doing on offense, and they were playing decent enough defense at the time. But Sam, you're right. I don't know what in the world's happening to them defensively right now. I just see. I see a lot of dribble penetration and then kickouts for open threes against Missouri these days.
Too many guys are. Kentucky could get in the lane on every possession it wanted to on Saturday, and so their guards just have to defend better if they're going to stand a chance. Because to me, it's an old adage, but it's as much as the NBA has changed. I think college basketball, the similarities, it's still about guard play once you get to the tournament, and if your guards are constantly getting into the lane and these anxious, nervous situations for a lot of these one-and-done games, like, it's so much more comfortable when you're taking wide-open shots, when you've got layups. And to me, that's what, like, when things aren't going right offensively, because you deal with those jitters in the tournament, you want to be able to hang your hat on, well, we can play tough defense, and Missouri can't hang its hat on that right now.
So what do we think? Are they capable of getting out of the first weekend of the NCAA tournament? Is this a team that just needs to see a different style and not play high SEC caliber opponents? And well, that's not the right way to say it, but just somebody outside of the SEC.
Yeah, I think what's really tough this year about the bracket in general, and Blair, you would know this better than me, but there's a huge gap between the 2 seeds and the 3 seeds this year.
I agree.
It seems like that's where there's a real split. And so, to me, that's dependent upon what they do this weekend. Because if you're a 6 seed, I think there's some 3 seeds that are beatable out there. I mean, if A&M's a 3 seed, I think they're beatable. Mizzou was in that game against A&M. Kentucky, I know we just talked about them, getting in the lane at will against Missouri. But that is a beatable 3 seed compared to past years. The 2 seeds are loaded, though. And so if Missouri loses again this weekend and potentially falls to the 7 line because you've lost 5 straight games, I don't think they can get out of the first weekend with that. If they're a 6 seed, I wouldn't predict them to do it, but I think that would be possible. They could get out of the first weekend.
Well, when you synthesize that stat about all the points they've given up the last 6 games, that is pretty jarring. But it's hard not to think about the marquee wins they've had too, and that's in there. I mean, that is there, and so I kind of like the change of pace argument. But I think Sam's really right that this week, these next few days will really matter for them. The seeding's really going to matter. It always does, right? But I think they're the sort of team that it's really going to matter for.
So do you guys? We all have our favorite bracketologist to follow, either Jerry Palm or Joe Lenardi or whatever. My favorite website for this is called bracketmatrix.com. Do you guys follow this?
It's just a combination of them all?
It's all of them. It's the average of all of them. And right now, the number one line, and I think everybody's in agreement with this, the top seeds are Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida. The 2 seeds, Alabama, Tennessee, Michigan State, St. John's. I think Michigan State's a team I wouldn't want to see right now. The way Izzo's got
those top 7 teams, I think, are the teams that I think are the top.
I'm a little all due credit to St. John's and Rick Pitino and the job that they did winning the Big East, and that's great. Why am I not convinced 100% on St. John's yet? I've maybe proven totally wrong on that. 3 seeds: Texas Tech, Texas A&M, Wisconsin, and Kentucky. The 4s right now: Iowa State, Purdue, Maryland, Arizona. Missouri is a 6. Kansas is a 7 seed. Wouldn't it be fun to? Where would a 6 and a 7? Would that be a regional final to match up, or
I think it would be a regional
or
final.
could that be a Sweet 16 game? I think that could be a Sweet 16.
Could it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Or
'cause
Elite
it'd be 2-3.
Elite 8, right?
Yeah. So regional
No,
final.
you're right. Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No. Let's go back. Elite 8, I think, right?
If it's a 6-7, that would align them with
They're both in the bottom half of the bracket. Yeah.
yes. Yeah. Anyway, I want
Sweet
to
16.
I want to see that happen. Sweet 16
Yeah.
game, Kansas and Missouri in Indianapolis, the closest one.
It is hard not. I mean, just as you're going through that, the bracket matrix there, just to realize, I mean, that Missouri beat 2 of those top 2 seeds,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's hard to forget that even amid what's going on now.
Well, KU.
And KU, yeah.
Duke. They beat Michigan State.
Yeah.
So they beat a 1 and a 2.
And they're right there with Tech and
And
in
right
Houston.
down with Houston twice.
yeah,
Twice.
yeah.
They had them beat. I
So all
mean,
those things.
that's why KU is where it is, because before Arizona, KU was 1-10 against the top 49 on Ken Palm over their last 11 games since the conference play started. Basically, I think since like late November, they had played 11 top 49 Ken Palm teams. They'd won one of those games, but it's that early season resume that has carried them. The reason they're still on the 7 line,
Yeah.
because to me, KU has the feeling of an 8-9 seed. But
It does.
You have to factor in the fact they beat Duke, they beat Michigan
Right.
State, they did beat Iowa State.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got good wins on their resume.
And if they win, like I said, I think if they win twice in Kansas City, I think they're out of the 8-9
Yeah.
area. So let's just take this a little further. If Missouri's a 6, the 11s right now, which would be a first-round opponent, are among schools from this group. Remember, 11 is one of those where you'd have 6 11 seeds because
Yeah.
you'd have 2 play-in games. San Diego State, VCU. It wouldn't be Oklahoma because they're in the SEC, but Indiana, Ohio State, or Xavier.
Are we sure about the SEC? Because I think they might have so many teams make it this year, they might not be able to avoid playing.
Maybe that's. I'll have to look that up because you're right. Now we're in the land of the, the 16,
Mega
18,
conferences,
the
yeah.
conferences. That might be unavoidable, but you kind of get the idea of the sort of the type of team. I'd love to see how about a Missouri Indiana first round game, if that's possible. Same for let's do it with the Kansas. If Kansas is a 7 seed right now, the 10s, Utah State, Arkansas, a team that knocked them out 2 years ago, and then the other 2 are Big 12 teams, Baylor and West Virginia. So some fun potential first round matchups for the Tigers
Well,
and Jayhawks.
you've left out the one you mentioned to me last week, which is one of these teams could play Drake
That's
in the first round, and that would be fascinating. But Ben McCollum 30-3 after winning the Missouri Valley over the weekend.
Drake is in. That's right. I'm so
Yeah.
happy,
Yeah.
so happy for Ben McCollum and that Drake program, and they may have needed to win that conference
Yeah.
tournament to get in, and bracket matrix has them as a 12 seed, so it would be possible.
It'd be possible.
Would be
They could get an
possible.
11. I mean, at 30-3, that's
Or if
possible.
Missouri gets up to a 5 with a couple
Yeah.
of wins in
Yeah.
Nashville, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's a scary proposition
Yeah,
to play
yeah.
Drake. And Bennett Sturts, the Liberty.
Liberty High Kid, yeah.
Yep. So anyway, all right. March Madness upon us. We'll see you guys in T-Mobile Center this week watching the Big 12 event, and we don't have a regional here, right? We first and second round are in
Wichita is the closest.
Yeah.
And really the only drivable one, I mean, for reasonable people.
Yeah.
Unlike you with your routine commutes to Denver and Lexington
You can get to Seattle in like 18 hours. So.
on the Empire Builder train through Chicago.
But anyway, it's a fun time of year. Really looking forward to it. And big thanks to Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian for breaking it all down. And also big thanks to Randy Mason and Monty Davis, our producers of SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in and around Kansas City.